This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
Informed Sources is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
We count on Informed Sources to continue the discussion on important local issues.
It's where our top journalists discuss stories they've covered.
Stay informed with Informed Sources.
Hello, I'm Marcia Kavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. For a while, the proposed new River District, combining businesses in a new neighborhood, was the most exciting development project on the city's growth chart. But now it has suddenly seemed to have fallen apart. What happened? Is there any chance for revival? We will examine. We'll also look at a loan settlement which could give the city of New Orleans relief from its current debt problems. Plus, the good news is that the federal government shutdown is over, but there are still serious questions about health care. This, plus a look at the weekend's runoff elections and bond issues, plus a remembrance of the career of Paul Tagliabue, the former NFL commissioner who was a genuine hero of the Katrina recovery, are on the agenda for tonight's Informed Sources. Errol, Laborde, producer of Informed Sources. And from the Times-Picayune and the New Orleans Advocate, Tony McCauley, who is staff writer, Will Sutton, columnist, and James Finn, a staff writer. Alrighty, we're going to go over to Tony first because, boy, the River District, it was going to be a self-contained neighborhood, a city within a city, but it's kind of stumbled right now. What's going on over there?
Yeah, I don't want to sound too apocalyptic about it, but just a little background first. It was, for anybody who hasn't followed it that closely, it's the convention center is a big economic driver in the city. They acquired some land 2.5 decades ago, now 25 years ago, with the initial intention of expanding the mile-long complex there. But over the years, none of these projects really ever got going. And then they segued to this idea that they would do like many other cities have done. They would build what they call a headquarters hotel, which is a one that's attached to the center and dedicated to visitors, and is something that most cities have these days as part of their package. And then because it was originally intended to be up at the far end, the upriver end of the complex where there's nothing but this barren land that they own, they decided they wanted to build this city within a city, as you say, as an entertainment district to give people things to do when they were at the convention center and staying in the hotel. So
and also residential too. Is it residential component as well?
So that's the kind of, that was the thinking that was there for a long time without any doing, and then about 4.5 years ago they finally set in motion they picked a master developer out of a group of competing master developers, which was local developer Louis Lauricella, who's known for like Elmwood and a few other area projects like that. Together with some out-of-town folks and some other local builders and architects and so on. And the idea was that what they were going to start with was 1,100 residential units, half of which would be affordable or workforce. And then they had all these other elements that they would put in place, which includes a music museum, which has been something the city has been talking about for decades, a civil rights museum, and some other venues that would fulfill that entertainment function. And one of the things that Lauricella and his group had as a plus was that they acquired the old Market Street power plant, which is on private land. It's outside of the patch of land that's owned by the convention center, and they were going to add that to development. So they kind of had a grand vision for more than 50 acres down there to build out all of these projects. What's happened, I mean, from the Lauricella group's point of view, obviously we had COVID subsequently. There was a long, bureaucratic process with the city before they came up with agreements as to how that would work. It took about a year, then COVID, then we had all the explosion in building costs, which has hit a lot of developments. So it's been very, very slow to get going. And what happened in the last few months is that the convention center, under new leadership in terms of the oversight board, a new Landry pick and a new board that's primarily picked by Governor Landry, was to say, enough is enough. You've missed too many deadlines in terms of rent payments and other lease obligations, and all we have so far is a shell building, which is a relatively small, mid-sized office building that they now fear will be what they call an island in this project without any other stuff around it when it comes on stream in 2027. You know.
So they right now aren't talking to each other, the two groups. Is it possible this could be revived?
Yeah, I mean, they both say that they want it to go ahead. It's just that they came out with the convention center leadership came out with a proposal, or they were going to vote on a proposal last week at their monthly board meeting to kind of reconstitute the whole thing, which would take back some of the land parcels from the developers, and then change the terms on others so that they had to get it done within the next year, or they would buy out the parcel, or again they would obviously have to take that back and just do something else. So it was kind of an ultimatum proposal, which they thought they had an agreement on, but then the developer group at the last minute during the meeting, in fact, said, you know, we don't want to do that deal anymore. So that's kind of everybody. You know, the chair, the board, the commissioners on the, you know, were clearly upset at this, and you know, they were shaking their head. And subsequently, I got a statement from Larcella and the group saying, you know, we really want to go ahead. We're just, you know, we wanted to fix some of the terms of the deal that we had agreed to before, so that's where it is. But in my reporting, it doesn't seem that they're actually talking yet, and that has worried some of the people, like the music museum folks, who are now looking at an alternative site, and that indicates that the danger of this all unraveling and becoming perhaps a protracted legal dispute. And, you know, this is supposed to be one of the it is the biggest project in New Orleans, be multi-billion project when you take into account the hotel, the $600 million hotel that the convention center is building, and the stuff on the private land. So, I mean, if all that just stagnates for years, it would be very disappointing.
Because this is really important real estate. Really important real estate down there.
Riverfront, yeah. I mean, it's one of the biggest in the country, in fact, potentially. One of the biggest riverfront developments of its kind, you know.
Okay, well, let's hope that it can move forward then. All right, Tony, keep us posted. I know you will on that. All right, over to you, James, because, you know, the city had to go looking for some money from the state to get a loan in order to pay its staff.
That's right, and just to catch viewers up on the City of New Orleans financial problems, the city has this two-pronged financial crisis. We have a $160 million deficit going into the end of the year. There's also a cash crunch where the city has said it doesn't have enough money to pay, to make payroll for about 5,000 city workers. And in the last couple of weeks, there have been talks between city leaders and leaders up at the state about securing a $125 million bond to cover those payroll costs. Now, initially, the governor and Attorney General Liz Murrill, both Republicans, said that in order to, for them to back giving the city that money, they would need to, or rather loaning the city that money, they would need to see a fiscal administrator appointed, which is pretty much a non-starter for Mayor-elect Helena Moreno and other Democrats on the city council. And talks have since continued, and Mayor-elect Moreno and Councilmember Joe Giarrusso and J.P. Morrell were able to go up and have some discussions last week that sort of changed the terms a little bit and got people seeing more eye to eye. And then we see this week the city has secured the $125 million bond agreement with the condition that Mike Wagesbach, the state legislative auditor, has oversight of how that money is being used. He has pretty broad veto power over its spending. But he's someone who, Mayor-elect Moreno has a good relationship with. She called him in to review the city's finances, and he's the one who delivered the assessment that our deficit is at $160 million, which was sort of seen as the clearest assessment yet of where the city's finances are at. So sort of some short-term relief for the city, but of course there's a lot more work to be done to smooth over all these problems.
So the rainy day fund, they are still going to have to tap into that to get a little bit out of that. Is that correct?
That's looking like what they're going to do. They've said that that's their plan, yes, at least in the short term.
Okay. And so this loan then, when will it be paid back?
It will take many years. I don't know the exact number, but it'll be a long-term obligation for the city. That was one of the concerns, I think, of the state leaders. They didn't want the appearance of the state just handing the city of New Orleans money to fix its financial problems. But the terms that they were able to hammer out have assuaged those worries.
So part of this was because of the legislative relationships from Helena Moreno in particular and J.P. Morrell.
Correct.
Being in the legislature and knowing Mike Wagensback and others who were in the room, correct?
Right, yeah. Helena Moreno, obviously former state lawmaker, represented an uptown district. It was her first political seat she held before she was elected to the city council and now mayor. And she is quite close with, obviously, J.P. Morrell, her city council colleague, who's also a state senator. They have a good working relationship with Cameron Henry, the Republican Senate president from Metairie. They also worked very closely with Jimmy Harris, who is a Democrat from New Orleans, close with, big political figures like Cedric Richmond. But Harris, sort of surprisingly, is one of the most powerful figures in the upper chamber in the Senate, and himself is quite close to Cameron Henry, and even has a good relationship with Jeff Landry. So, the governor has sort of worked with the city on this. There's obviously, always this tension between the state, conservative state leadership and a Democratic-led New Orleans city government. But in this case, those relationships seem to have really borne out for the city. They also kind of are existing in this vacuum of Mayor Cantrell, who's obviously leaving office in January, has not really fostered those relationships and is kind of persona non grata at the Capitol. And
did she participate at all in this negotiation?
She was completely absent from a number of the meetings. She was not totally absent from sort of planning for the overall response to the budget deficit in the last couple of weeks. We spoke to a few administration officials who described her holding sort of daily meetings with Romy Samuel, her finance director, to, as one administration official told us, uncover couch cushions to find reserve funds that hadn't been tapped. She's also been suddenly communicating pretty regularly with certain city council members like Joe Giarrusso. We got public records showing that they've been emailing every day to talk about things like drawing money from the Wisner Trust and other sources to fix these problems. And that's interesting. That was interesting to me because in covering this council and outgoing Mayor Cantrell, there's no secret that they have an extremely frosty relationship, but that seems to have, for whatever reason, thawed a little bit over this issue.
But unfortunately, Joe Giarrusso, who's really good at this sort of thing, he's only the last 2 months in office. He didn't run for office again. And he's really been important in this kind of negotiation. But I don't know if you notice that in the list of ideas for raising revenues in the future is having some sort of this isn't the exact term, but something like an event fee. So if you have a Taylor Swift or some kind of big event, that the cost will include putting up money for police security and for protection. That's something they hadn't had before. And it sounds like a good idea, but it may also be an idea that dissuades somebody from wanting to come. I mean, like if you're competing for a big game or a Super Bowl or something too, so it could have a negative effect as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, of course, we're going to have a new administration come next year, and they're going to be facing, Helena Moreno is already tackling it, but it's going to be hers. She's going to be mayor. We want to know, how did this happen? How did the city get into this? There is some investigation into that, right?
Yeah, myself and my colleague Ben Myers at the paper did a story a couple weeks ago that tried to answer that exact question. And one of the biggest problems seems to be that no one in the Cantrell administration budgeted for overtime, which is a pretty astonishing oversight. It's a nearly $50 million cost every year. A lot of that is made up from police overtime. And to start this year, we had a lot of that because of the January 1st attack on Bourbon Street. And then, the Sugar Bowl and the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras. And someone in the administration just did not budget for that.
Okay. We'll see where it goes. Thanks a lot, James. Okay, Will, over to you. Shutdown's over. Federal shutdown's over. But we still don't know what's going to happen to healthcare
Nope.
costs.
Nope. We don't know what's going to happen with SNAP. The Governor Landry announced this week that everybody who's on SNAP will be taken care of after a lot of back and forth, particularly in the first 4 days of the month, whether people were going to get anything or 25%, 65%, 85%. A lot of back and forth, and frankly tied to the federal government shutdown in the context of President Trump's philosophy about that. So I want to be clear that government shutdowns in the past have not meant stopping SNAP benefits. So that's not something that's happened with every government shutdown. So with this government shutdown, that was stopped, and that is resuming after 43 days. There's still questions about what the federal government will pay for versus the state. But as we move forward, just on Friday, the president's administration announced that they are tired of seeing so much fraud among the 42 million people who use SNAP, that there's going to have to be another layer of application to make sure the eligibility is good. Frankly, that percent is less than 0.5%. Meanwhile, the ACA is on track to expire at the end of the year. People have to select their plans in the marketplace if they don't have insurance through their employer by December 15th. The ACA tax credits expire December 31st. So that means if you go to healthcare.gov and look, you're going to see same plans but at a higher cost. If those tax credits aren't extended, that's going to hurt a lot of people, probably more than the SNAP benefits, because those are going to be people who are more middle class and more.
We don't know if these benefits are going to be extended. We have no idea. Right?
Well, we're on a pretty tight timetable with Thanksgiving coming up and Christmas coming up and the end of the year. And I haven't seen any Congresses recently willing to work on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day to try to get things done. So more likely than not, these tax credits are on the way to expire without some rather Herculean efforts in Congress to bring about some changes. But even if there are changes, it probably won't be at the same level of tax credits that we have now.
Okay, well, we'll see. Not good news, definitely, for a lot of people. All right, well, thanks a lot. Errol, over to you. You wanted to talk about Paul Tagliabue, who passed away this week, who was really, really important to
actually,
New
the
Orleans.
Times-Picayune did an editorial about him today, and the part of the first sentence says, "Very rarely has someone who never lived in Louisiana done so much for the state and the city of New Orleans as did Tagliabue." This all goes back to Katrina. When Katrina hit in August 2005, this was right as a lot of that was happening, including the beginning of the football season. Superdome was badly damaged during it. The Saints had to move out of town. A lot of infrastructure issues. And that whole season, the Saints did not play all at home. They played most of the games in San Antonio, a couple of games in Baton Rouge, but they were on the road the whole time. And the fact that they were playing in San Antonio made people a little nervous because Tom Benson had business relationships in San Antonio. And let me tell you, no one can doubt Tom Benson's loyalty and his commitment to New Orleans, but there were signs out there that it might not be right for New Orleans, including the mayor of San Antonio, who made all kinds of statements sort of to the extent of, well, New Orleans is dead, just to come to San Antonio. That wasn't very encouraging. But anyway, so there was concern about the Saints franchise coming back. They had kind of a dismal season on the road. And then Paul Tagliabue, who is a fairly new NFL commissioner, came into New Orleans, pulled together a meeting of really important and powerful and big people, including Tom Benson. And people who've been at that meeting told me, in fact, that Tagliabue left no doubt, said the Saints are coming back to New Orleans. I mean, we're committed to it. As a business decision, I mean, Tagliabue had to do that because it would look bad not to do that. But he was really committed to the team coming back. And the NFL put some money into restoring the Dome. But he also worked on the schedule. That season, as you went into the 2006 season, the Saints did not have any preseason games because they were still working on the Dome. Then if they got into the regular season, Tagliabue arranged with the networks that the Saints would be on Monday Night Football, but it would not be until the third game of the season to allow 2 more weeks to work on the Dome, which I think was September 26th. And so what happened, and when you got to that week, I mean, it really looked, first of all, the Saints had a new coach that nobody heard of named Sean Payton. They had a quarterback that hardly anybody heard of named Drew Brees. So you got these unheard of people who haven't played at home. And so the season started, and the Saints' first 2 games were both on the road, and lo and behold, the Saints won both of them, which was surprising to me. Like one was against Green Bay. I mean, they beat them good, and the other against Cleveland. Finally, the night of September 26th came, and this was a red-letter day in New Orleans. There was so much excitement around town, and the Saints were coming. Monday Night Football is promoting it. The national news media were promoting it. The return of the Saints to the Superdome. The stadium was packed. The NFL brought in big-name entertainment for the thing. And then, lo and behold, there was the famous beginning of the game where Atlanta received a kickoff. They went for their first few plays, and on 4th down, I think they were like on the 15-yard line, they punted, and a guy named Steve Gleason broke through, blocked the punt. It went into the end zone. A player nobody remembers named Curtis DeLoach for the Saints recovered it. Saints had a touchdown within the first 2 minutes. They were leading 7-0, and the crowd was really nuts. But anyway, that was all because Tagliabue orchestrated that event to happen. The following segment, what happened over the years, of course, is another story with Gleason having the situation with ALS. But he always became a symbol of recovery and hope and try to do best during hard times. But Tagliabue really made it happen.
Made it happen, kept the Saints here.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Tagliabue. We greatly appreciate it. And we do have 1 Super Bowl win, so thank you much. Okay, let's wrap up with you, James, because there are a couple of elections. This is an Orleans parish. Runoffs for council, sheriff, and then some propositions and also amendments, charter amendments.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there will be runoffs for 2 district races and then the criminal clerk of court, and then a number of bond proposals and charter changes. It's projected to be a very low turnout election because the marquee races, the council at large races, and the mayor's race, of course, were decided on October 11th in the primary.
And the sheriff.
And the sheriff as well, yes. So sort of the marquee citywide races are in the books, they're done. And nonetheless, there's some buzz around some of these races. In District A, you have 2 former staffers of current council member Joe Giarrusso competing against each other, Holly Friedman and Amy McCarran. The tenor of that race has really ramped up. It finished very close in the primary, and a bunch of attacks have flown between the candidates. TV attacks, mailers, sort of attacking each of their respective records, and that will likely be a close race. In District E, you have Cindy Wynn and Jason Hughes running against each other. Cindy Wynn, of course, former District E council member. Jason Hughes, a state rep. That's another one that has the potential to really go either way. Then we have, for the criminal district court race, Calvin Duncan, the challenger, running against Darren Lombard. Criminal district clerk. We have Calvin Duncan challenging the incumbent, Darren Lombard. Lombard has really committed a number of he made a number of campaign choices that analysts have said have really put him in a tough spot. He's facing a real close race against Duncan, who is a political newcomer. It's his first race. He was imprisoned for 28 years for a murder for which he was later exonerated. And that one will probably be the race to watch on Saturday. Then, of course, bond proposals, money for drainage, housing, and infrastructure. And then we have a couple of charter changes. One, the hotter of the two, is to sort of clarify the role of the city attorney, and that stems from a dispute between the council and the mayor. And then we have another one to kind of extend some deadlines for civil service issues.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the bond issues, though. There are 3 props within that bond proposal, and that will do what?
The bond proposals will send money to affordable housing, drainage work, and road and infrastructure repairs. So 3 sort of issues that are top of mind for a lot of residents and also have been a part of pretty much every candidate's political platform this election cycle. It is the most controversial of the three is probably the affordable housing one, which we've seen a lot of other stop and start efforts in the last couple of years.
So that's what, total of?
510
510 million. And so there's 45 for affordable housing. What controversy has come up around that?
Affordable housing, the question of how to expand it in New Orleans has just been like an ongoing political debate. I wrote a couple of days ago about a proposal by a consultant the city had hired, basically suggesting that the city get rid of a requirement that developments in the downtown area have to have a certain number of affordable units, 10%. This was an example of a policy that was tried and people felt had some promise. Initially, it always had a lot of opposition from developers, and now it's sort of roundly been agreed upon as a failure. And so now the bond item on the ballot for affordable housing has been controversial just because people are always sort of arguing about where money should come from for this. There was, of course, the charter change last year that
for the
allocated
Housing Trust Fund.
For the Housing Trust Fund,
right.
which allocated a chunk of the
2%.
city budget every year, 2% to that issue. It was approved widely, but it's since been really controversial, and there's been a lot of debate over it.
Okay.
What's interesting
Real quick,
about
Tony.
the, if you quick word on the affordable housing, because what James was talking about that he wrote about earlier was getting rid of this MIZ requirement of in certain parts. Developers have been complaining about that for years,
Right.
And then on the other side, what the new proposal would do would change the funding, because and one of the controversies there is that people thought that the money would have been funneled to developers. So it's just interesting that you have this disparity in the discussion.
Important issues for the voters of the Orleans Parish. Okay, guys, we need to go real quick around the table. Quick, Errol?
This weekend's elections will be the last ones of the year, but they're also the last under the current system where we have the open primaries. Beginning next year, they're going to a new system which involves, in some elections, the closed primary systems where people run by parties. So the state is going to be educating voters about the differences. It's a system almost what we used to use in Bassett. So
Okay, quick.
politics is changing. Yeah.
All right, real quick, Tony.
Real quick, in the infrastructure, there's been very little real information out there.
Yeah.
Within that, there's a bunch of proposals for economic development, like money for the Six Flags, to tear down Lindy Boggs, to build a
Right.
Field of Dreams stadium in Upper Ninth Ward. People should have a good look at that if they're thinking about voting.
And that's the
'Cause
bond proposal for
That's the 450 million infrastructure one,
Okay.
which has a lot of interesting stuff in it. Read it, is what I would say.
Will, quick.
Wanted to recognize the Religious Sisters of the Holy Spirit from Zambia. Why? Because they won the 2025 Opus Prize Laureate, an international humanitarian award, which was coordinated and convened by Xavier University right here in New Orleans.
Congratulations
They're doing
to them.
amazing work.
Wonderful. Okay, James, real quick.
Yeah, one thing to keep an eye on as the city keeps navigating this budget crisis is police overtime. If you're interested, my colleagues Sophie Casacove and Blake Patterson wrote a sort of a deep dive on this issue. It's obviously a huge chunk of the city's budget that wasn't accounted for as this budget crisis unfolds.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you. See you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
Informed Sources is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
We count on Informed Sources to continue the discussion on important local issues.
It's where our top journalists discuss stories they've covered.
Stay informed with Informed Sources.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.